On the morning of January 26, 1966, three siblings left their home in a quiet Adelaide suburb to spend the day at the beach. They never came home again. Their disappearance triggered one of the largest search operations in Australian history, and more than 55 years later, the case remains officially unsolved. In 1966, Somerton was a modest Adelaide suburb, part of an era when children commonly walked, rode buses, and played unsupervised for hours at a time. 9-year-old Jane, 7-year-old Anna, and 4-year-old Grant Beaumont set out that Australia Day morning boarding a public bus bound for Glenelg Beach in South Australia. The beach was a familiar spot for the family, and the children were trusted to spend the day there on their own. It was common for the time. Witnesses later reported seeing the three children on the beach that day, going about what seemed like an ordinary outing in the sun. Other witnesses recalled seeing the children afterward at a nearby bakery, in the company of a tall, blonde man who was never identified or charged. When evening came and the children still hadn't returned home, their parents grew increasingly concerned, and what began as worry soon turned to alarm. The Beaumonts contacted police, and within hours, a search was underway across the beachfront and surrounding suburbs of Adelaide. The search rapidly expanded, drawing in volunteers, police, and media attention, growing into one of the largest search operations Australia had ever seen. Weeks turned into months without a single confirmed lead, and the disappearance became a fixture of national news coverage across Australia. By November of 1966, with the case still unresolved, South Australian police turned to an unconventional source for help, a Dutch clairvoyant named Gerard Croiset. Croiset insisted the children's remains would be found beneath a concrete floor inside an Adelaide factory located near their school. A publicly funded campaign raised enough money to demolish part of the building and excavate the site Croiset had pointed to in 1966 and 1967. After all that effort and expense, the dig turned up no evidence connecting the site to the missing children. The case went cold for decades, leaving the Beaumont family and the wider Adelaide community without answers for generations. Then, in 2013, new information surfaced. A man who, as a teenager, had worked at a factory in the area claimed he'd seen children matching their description in the yard that day. Two former workers at the same site separately said they had been paid to dig a hole there shortly after the disappearance, reigniting police interest in the property decades later. That renewed interest eventually led investigators back to the site, now known as the former New Castalloy factory, in Adelaide's North Plympton. In February 2018, police began excavating the factory site in search of the children's remains, more than 50 years after they vanished. After days of digging, the excavation was called off. No sign of the children was found at the site. Scientists later returned to the same location using ground-penetrating radar and electrical resistivity tomography to scan beneath the surface. The survey identified an unusual feature buried below ground, prompting a second, more targeted excavation at the spot. That dig, however, uncovered only animal bones and discarded rubbish, nothing linking the site to Jane, Anna, or Grant. As of today, the disappearance of the Beaumont children remains completely unsolved. No suspect has ever been charged in connection with their disappearance. The South Australian government continues to offer a standing reward of roughly $1 million Australian dollars for information that leads to a resolution of the case. More than 55 years after the children vanished, no arrest has ever been made, and the file remains formally open with South Australian police. What happened to Jane, Anna and Grant Beaumont on that Australia Day afternoon in 1966 has never been answered despite decades of searches, leads and excavations. Their disappearance changed how a generation of Australian parents thought about letting their children roam free, and it remains one of the country's most enduring mysteries.